Throughout all of our daily lives, we are constantly being exposed to rhetoric. Whether it's an advertisement, a TV show, a news outlet, or a conversation with friends, rhetoric is a part of life that we have become accustomed to so much so that we don't even notice it. Acknowledging and then mastering it can allow you to effectively relay your ideas or opinions and have the receivers of your messages believe them too. Persuasion can be a challenging goal to achieve, though, especially with highly opinionated people. Before going into a conversation with the intent of persuading or changing someone's opinion, one needs to take into account the other party's prior beliefs and stances, which leads me to my topic, social judgment theory. Social judgment theory is used when analyzing attitudes of people in regards to their opinions and stances on specific topics, and then adjusting your words accordingly. Social judgment theory is best illustrated on a linear spectrum like this. This line represents a topic of discussion. Around it, the various opinions that are associated with said topics are mapped out according to where they sit with the listener's own opinion. Notice the different sections on this spectrum. They all represent different levels of agreement to the opinions mapped inside them. This area represents the latitude of acceptance, which is the range of opinions that a listener will agree with the opinion most central to the listener's own, marked by the anchor. This area represents the latitude of non-commitment. This area contains opinions to which the person neither feels opposed nor against. Lastly, this is the latitude of rejection, which encompasses opinions that are against the listener's own. The closer an opinion is to the anchor, the more the person agrees with it. Agreement lessens the farther away from the anchor an opinion is. Now that we get the basics of the spectrum, let's use it in an example. Say two friends, Alec and Sam, get into a discussion about the Indianapolis Pacers. Alec does not think they are as good of a team as Pacers fan Sam thinks they are. Alec's goal is to convince Sam to see things his way, so he resorts to concepts from the social judgment theory to help him. Posted on the spectrum are a list of opinions that range from the most extreme of Sam's to the most extreme of Alec's. They go as follows. The Pacers are the most overrated team in the NBA. The Pacers are lacking talent and leadership. The Pacers are a good but not great team. The Pacers benefited from a weak conference. The Pacers are missing just one or two good players to be good enough to be the best. The Pacers are an above-average playoff team. Paul George and David West are great players. The Pacers are championship favorites, and the Pacers are the best team in the NBA. Now, Sam is a big fan, so her anchor goes right here, on the second most extreme of opinions about her team. Before we go on, we need to discuss one last concept to think of, which is ego involvement. Ego involvement refers to how emotionally connected the person is to the topic at hand. The larger the ego involvement, the smaller the latitude of acceptance will be. This must also be taken into account before making any kind of effort to persuade. For example, if Sam had higher ego involvement in this topic, then the opinion the Pacers are an above-average playoff team would likely fall out of the latitude of non-commitment and down into the latitude of rejection. Now back to Alec's dilemma. Social judgment theory states that in order to change someone's opinion or shift their anchor, one needs to make gradual movements away from her latitude of acceptance so that she still feels comfortable with the discussion. Otherwise, a statement from too deep in her latitude of rejection could not only cause her to automatically discount Alec's argument, but possibly cause her to shift her anchor the opposite of the intended direction in a phenomenon referred to as the boomerang effect. Keeping ego involvement and the perceived range of her latitudes in mind, an example of an argument Alec could make would be, Paul George and David West are great players, but I feel like they are just one or two more good players away from becoming a championship team. Here, Alec concedes a statement that lands in her latitude of acceptance in order to, in a sense, soften her up to future statements that will land in her latitude of rejection. Not too far, though, at least in the beginning. At this point, Sam may start to agree with Alec's points a little bit more and then shift her anchor more his way. At this point, Alec can then opt to push the boundaries a little more and say, honestly, the teams the Pacers had to play in the Eastern Conference were subpar as a whole, and that played a role into their success this season. They are good, but not great. And then, after some facts, figures, and stats related to those opinions, Sam will shift her anchor, or not, according to how well she receives the message. Now, even knowing what we know about social judgment theory, there are still no promises as to any kind of positive shift of a person's anchor. The best a speaker can do is perceive someone's ego involvement and anchor to the best of his or her abilities and try to formulate opinions that complement them. Changing opinions can seem like a daunting task in any situation, but applying the concepts of social judgment theory can make a big difference in the outcome. Throughout all of our daily lives,